Welcome in to another episode of Chiefs Focus Live. We've got a fun show for today. We're going to spend a lot of time just talking about free agency, talk about guys that were gained here in Kansas City, some players that we lost, and just asking some questions about what Kansas City is missing before heading into the draft. Speaking of the draft, we're going to talk about some more draft crushes, guys that we've looked into, both on the offense and defensive side of the ball. We got Thiz running the show in the background. My name is Quentin Morris. And now two guys who are as disappointing takes as KU basketball. It's the old man himself, JP, and the Professor Caleb. How are we doing tonight, gentlemen?
Doing pretty good. It's good to see you guys. How are you guys doing?
Not too bad. Not too bad.
That's good. That's good.
It's I got to tell you, the lull is coming up. For the NFL off season. This little lull is like that's the part of the off season that I just hate because it seems like this is just such a long off season. Coming off back-to-back Super Bowls, it's hard. I don't know about you guys, but it's hard. It's hard to sit around and find any joy in any other sport right now.
Well, it also is. I mean, and my team isn't in the tournament, so March Madness, whatever. And I'll watch it because. Well, it's
there.
Sports,
Why not?
and it's there. And then, baseball hasn't started yet. Opening day is in a week, so at least we've got that coming up.
That's going to be a great time.
Yeah, the 28th is when an opening day is. So, we'll see how that works out. But at least baseball will be back on in a week, and then I can hopefully roll that over into football season again. But it's sort of tough because late February into March, there's not a ton going on because the Chiefs have made it easier though, with their season rolling as late as it is. But it's just like, come on, hurry up.
This was a very healthy early off season. I got to give it that. There was a lot of action going on. Now we're going to get into that really slow time. It just but that's okay.
Basically, from now we'll talk draft stuff. Then after the draft, we'll talk about the guys that have happened, the rookie OTA stuff like that. So it's going to kind of peak and valley basically up until late July.
Yep, late July when we get into training camp, and then it's just football all the time. So people are about to be very happy. But the spring league is about to start in a couple of leagues very soon, so that'll hold you over for a little bit.
That's true.
Yeah, I get to watch mediocre football. If I wanted to watch that, I'd have been, watching I'd been watching. I don't even know, South Dakota State. I don't even some.
Hey, they're passionate about their sports, Quinn. If you run to a South Dakota State fan, they may come after you.
That's true.
That is true. Yep. Well, let's get into this, man. Got nothing else to do.
Let's. If you want to throw the graphic up, let's just talk about. Just give a general idea of what's been gained and lost from this free agency. There's really not a ton of guys that were gained and or lost. It's kind of a short list. So we've got the Chiefs have signed Hollywood Brown. Obviously, we knew that. And Irv Smith Jr., the tight end. The other guys on the list, Derek Nottie, Wharton, Pennell, Deion Bush, were all re-signed. So we've got that there. Obviously, we know Chris Jones re-signed here too. But mostly just two additions. There's really not a whole lot of new guys coming onto the roster. The guys that were lost, not a big loss really on either side of the ball. Mike Edwards, Willie Gay Jr. is definitely the biggest of the losses. Nick Allegretti, we'll talk about his loss here in a minute and what that means for the Chiefs. Mike Pennell and Jody Fortson, who I didn't even still on the team. So
you're mean. You're a mean individual, man. I mean, there's nothing wrong with Jody Fortson, and it's blasphemy to say that it wasn't a loss because we did have a loss in Willie.
Look, just put it on the graphic, okay? So
but you said the words. You said the words. It wasn't a big loss. There was a couple of big losses on there.
No, man. I said I didn't even know he was on the team. It was more.
I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about your other words when you said we didn't have a whole lot of real big losses.
We didn't have a whole lot of real big losses.
Willie Gay was a big loss. He was one of the better. He was one of the better players on this team. You got to give him some credit,
I had told you all of last offseason, all this year, that this is it. This Willie Gay Jr. is not back on the roster. I was emotionally prepared for it.
Yeah, whatever. All right. Anyway, let's move on. That's just ridiculous.
So let's just
the filth.
Overall, seeing the gains and losses, let's just have the general conversation of what do you think is left for Kansas City to add, even though there's not a ton of guys actually left in free agency. Is there a position that you feel is needed? Is there a specific player out there that you feel like is needed? Because I've got 2 positions that I think Kansas City needs to address before the draft.
Who wants to go first? Caleb, you?
I'll go. The one position I believe we still need help on the defensive line because Amenahu's out, and I don't know who they're going to bring in, but they really didn't make like any splash moves in the free agency besides re-signing Chris Jones. So I think that's one move possibly, and the other one it's going to depend on, I believe, still the wide receiver position. Is there someone else they can bring in that can help mentor these guys for a decent price? No, the Chiefs are not going to pay OBJ 3 years, $56 million guaranteed. $56 million. That's not happening. No. But can they bring someone with some caliber and some depth that can help this team moving forward? So I say defensive line and wide receiver are my 2 positions I think need to be addressed still.
Okay, well, I mean, I agree as far as the defensive line, although we do have Bugs sitting on the practice squad that can probably step up if Amenahu's not coming, is not ready for week 1.
Which he won't be.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, he's going to be gone
that
half
injury
the year.
happened so late in the year. I just he won't be.
Well, you never know. I mean, he's been working out pretty hard. He put some videos up of him working out. He looks pretty good. So if Aaron Rodgers can come back that quick, I mean,
except he didn't.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying he said
I think that for when it comes to Amenahu, you should prepare for the worst and hope for the best. You should be prepared that he's not going to be there for half the season again. You should go into this season like you did last offseason, basically accepting the fact that Amenahu is going to be like you just got a mid-season trade. That's how you should be addressing this team. He should be a non-factor in how you're building this team right now.
That's a good point.
You are not going to get anything from him early on in the year. Even if he comes back by some medical miracle, by that he's simply just built different, if he's able to come back for week 1, he's not going to be up to speed yet because he's missed all the offseason stuff. So even if he's able to physically come back and he's in football shape, he won't truly be in that football shape like everybody else is because he's missed all of the other stuff. So you have to go into this season expecting Amenahu to be out for the first 8 weeks.
Exactly, I agree.
Yeah, well, we got somebody that can fill his shoes pretty well. That's why Veach brought him in. I think he can play the position. So we'll see what happens. I think we need to address the safety room. I think we need another safety. I really do. Honestly, losing Mike Edwards, we're probably going to have to address that too. But I think safety and I think we need to address the offensive line. I mean, we just lost Allegretti. We're going to have somebody to fill those shoes. And I don't think we have that as of yet.
Okay, so my 2 positions that I think Kansas City needs to address before the draft, I think they need to sign a left tackle.
Ooh, okay.
I think that, and I do believe in Wanye Morris. I do think that he could be, a starting offensive line moving forward. But my problem is that there's no depth at that position.
Yeah.
If you just look at Kansas City's roster, there's nobody on this team other than Wanye Morris to play left tackle. I went up and I was looking available free agents. Now, I was hoping that Tyron Smith would end up on this roster, but unfortunately he signed up to go to the retirement camp known as the New York Jets. So he's off the board. Then I was just looking at any of the guys that were left. There's Bakhtiari, right? David Bakhtiari, former Green Bay Packer. His problem is, for the love of God, his knees are so bad. I don't know what he did. I don't know what's going on with his ACL, but he has had 3 ACL tears within the last 4 years.
Yeah.
So not great, if I'm being honest with you. He played 55 snaps in 2023, 597 snaps in 2022. He left that year early because he had an appendectomy. So can't even, when his knees are working, his pancreas explodes.
Yeah.
In 2021, he tore his ACL 27 snaps into the year. And in 2020, he tore his ACL after playing 758 snaps. The last season that he had over 1,000 snaps was in 2019. So I don't know if by bringing in a David Bakhtiari, how promising it could be, because we're on the trend here that he's going to tear his other ACL if and when he signs with an NFL team. So
I don't know if he's going to sign this year, though, Quentin. He talked about retiring for a year and then coming back. He wanted to get himself.
I have to do that because coming off back-to-back ACLs, it's injuries, and you have to do that.
It's back-to-back appendectomy ACL tear. He's torn as many ACLs as the Chiefs have won Super Bowls. Okay,
Yeah, that's
it's
sad.
crazy.
Yeah, that's sad.
Mhm.
Well,
So I think that on paper it looks great until you read my paper where I've got a list of all of his knee problems.
yeah,
So
that's
David Bakhtiari, I don't think is a real option for Kansas City.
no.
Then there's a guy, Charles Leno, who was cut by Washington at the beginning of the month. He finished the year on the IR with a calf injury that he had to have surgery on.
Okay.
But then after he was cut, there was a reporting out that he was scheduled to have hip surgery during the offseason. Now,
That's
he
not
played
good.
left tackle, and he was a
Mm.
decent left tackle, but hip surgery is very
Yeah, that's not
concerning to
good.
me.
Yeah.
Ooh.
That is
That's
definitely
not good.
that doesn't seem like a go, because as much as you need your knees to play football, you need your hips to be able to, move around and to be able to block some of these
And
bigger
not only
guys.
that, any NFL player that has hip issues or surgery, their career usually just declines after that. I mean, it's
Yeah,
just
'cause
kind
all
of
the
common.
pressure that's on your
Yeah,
legs.
it's just
you're
kind of
working.
common knowledge. It just I wouldn't want him for any reason.
So once again, that doesn't seem like a no-go. Then there's this guy, I don't know if you guys know who he is. Donovan Smith,
Yeah,
he's a free
yeah.
agent out there. Donovan re-signing Donovan Smith might be the only
Option.
option Kansas City has at
Yeah.
this point. You know you can get him cheap because it's March 21st and he hasn't signed with anybody. So any
Mhm.
signing that you make from here until ever until the start of next offseason, all the
Mhm.
signings are going to be cheap. And I know that Donovan Smith wasn't a great left tackle. He had his problems throughout the year, but I think he's the only option for Kansas City. And it's just really weird for Kansas City to have such an important hole on their roster, and there doesn't seem to be a plan for it up to this point. And
Well,
like
we
I've
don't
been
know if
talking
there's a
about,
plan. Yeah.
like I've been talking about, you can't go into the draft with a major need because you're going to pigeonhole yourself into drafting one position, and you can't do that. So I think Kansas City has to go out and sign Donovan Smith. I think that has to be the plan. Give him another 1-year deal worth essentially nothing, incentive based, sort of the same deal that you gave him last year, and hope that you can either draft a tackle or that Wanya Morris truly is ready, and Donovan Smith can just sort of be there as a backup and hold the fort down.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, we don't know what Beach is thinking. He may have a plan already in place, but he usually doesn't go in to even close to the draft and not have starters in place. That
Mhm.
normally doesn't happen for Beach.
That's what I mean. That there has to be, you have to go in and sign somebody in order to just start filling the roster.
Yeah, I think Donovan. He had some issues, but I mean, he had less issues than Taylor did on the other side of the ball. So, or the other side of the line. I don't know, man. If he comes back, I'm not gonna. It's not gonna hurt my feelings. He did okay. Mahomes was pretty protected all year long, for the most
Mhm.
part. He was one of the least sacked quarterbacks in the league.
Well, and as you said, JP, he's going to roll to his right more than left. So they're more
Exactly.
concerned about the right hand side, if anything, more than the left.
Correct.
Right tackle in this instance of the way the offense runs is going to be more vital. Left hand, left tackle. We put someone there as long as they can do a good job, but the right hand is what we're really focusing on.
Correct. And I think that's why they're not as concerned right now with the way they roll. So, I mean, that seems like a pretty good list. I know that offensive line is a little bit concerning to me. The safety room, I think, and the fact that we did lose Mike Edwards, is we needed him. He was very good every time he was on the field. He made a huge impact on the field, and that's a loss. And I don't know if Veach has got plans for a draft pick to fill his shoes, or if he's looking at somebody else. I don't know. I'm sure he's got a plan though.
Veach always does.
Yeah.
I've got the other position I think Kansas City needs to add, and this is going to surprise some of you based on my
If you say
thoughts.
quarterback, you're going to get deleted off the show. Just saying.
You got half the word right. Running back. I think Kansas City needs to add
Yes.
a running back onto this roster. Right now, all you have on your roster is Pacheco. You don't have a veteran running back on your roster right now, so I think Kansas City needs to go out. McKinnon is not the answer to me. He had an injured year. Honestly, if we're being honest with ourselves, his 2023 year was the anomaly of his career. right?
Mm-hmm.
The fact he was able to stay healthy the entire time and he was able to be productive in the passing and the running game.
Mm-hmm.
That's the anomaly of his career, and you should just move on from him. He got a Super Bowl ring. He was just one of those what ifs of his career. He could not stay healthy. You got what you could out of him. You just got to move on.
Yeah.
The other guys that are out there, I've just got a list of a couple of names in front of me. Like, I'm not a big fan of bringing Ezekiel Elliott in Kansas City. I think he's one of those guys that just got ran into the ground, and I just don't know if he has a whole lot left on him. Some guy like Kareem Hunt is still out there. I mean, that's fine to me. You've got J.K. Dobbins and Cam Akers are out there. Either one of those are fine. I know both of those guys have had injuries, especially J.K. Dobbins, but
Yeah, ACL for him, and then the other guy has
Right.
Achilles, I think, or something like that.
Right. But anybody left out there is going to have some sort of problems because if they didn't, they would have been signed already.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, I think Kansas City's best option is to bring back Clyde.
What?
You're on drugs.
I think
Their best option is to bring back Kareem Hunt.
All right, time to
That's
get him
their
off
best
the
option.
Time to
Yeah,
get him off the
I
floor.
think Kansas City's best option is to bring back Clyde. Look, as your third down back, I know on this, one of the things that is great with bringing in veteran players is the whole know the system thing. You're not depending on Clyde to be that guy.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to use a draft pick to draft somebody else. So you're talking about him as the second or third running back in the system on the team. I don't have a problem with it. It's just weird to say that, but once again, if you're just looking at the guys that are left out there, Clyde is he's only 24 years old, even though it feels like he's been in the league for a lot longer than that.
Mm-hmm.
He's been a good backup running back. Since Pacheco got here, Clyde has been fine. And we as Chiefs fans sort of hold over to him that he was a first-round pick. And so we had such high expectations for him, rightfully so, in a certain extent. But I just think that bringing back Clyde might be a good option for Kansas City because you know that he's not going to be expensive. He's going to be like less than $2 million running back on your roster.
Well, I will say this, and to everybody out there, don't do drugs. There's the answer. You can see it on the screen right now. You don't want to do drugs. It's not good for you. Quentin, get some help. I think
He does have a point, though. It is bringing someone back who's familiar with the offense.
Okay,
but
Kareem Hunt's familiar with the offense. He's
true,
still familiar with that offense, and he's better.
The point is that you can't just run out there with Pacheco because I'm having the feeling Pacheco is going to start maybe taking a downward path, just health-wise, because he's getting a little bit more injured. But we got to have that 1-2 punch ready to go. We don't even have that 2 punch.
And I'm sure they will. But, I mean, if I had to take my choice, if I had to pick, I would take Kareem Hunt over Clyde all day long.
I like Kareem Hunt too, but I feel like Kareem's time has just passed. What he had in KC was special before all that stuff happened. I just think now, like, they're just going to have to find someone else like they've been doing to figure out what they're going to do.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Clyde may be an option, but I don't know. I don't know, man. He's not going to be able to get very many snaps because if he does, he's going to get injured at some point.
Look, everybody that's left on this list, right, has some baggage that comes to it. Whether it's a former injury or, like I brought up with Ezekiel Elliott, it's just that he was just run into the ground when he was with the Cowboys, so there's just not a lot of tread left on the tire.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to talk about one player that is really interesting to me, Cordell Patterson, the running back wide receiver guy.
That would be a good option.
That spent some time in Atlanta. That would be interesting to me. The problem with him is that he's 33 years old. But as a backup guy, I don't necessarily hate it either. I just know that Kansas City needs to sign somebody in order to be that second and potentially third running back. Because, look, we've been very lucky, okay? And knock on wood, we've been very lucky that Pacheco has been very healthy as he has been for a guy that plays the position in the most brutal way possible, right? This is a guy that doesn't avoid contact, and this is a guy that, honestly, without him, you don't have a lot behind him. So Kansas City is going to spend a draft pick on there. And in fact, next week I have a running back that I'm going to bring to the show that I think Chiefs fans should be interested in, and I think is realistic for Kansas City to get him because there's a real chance he doesn't go drafted and he'll be an undrafted free agent. But this is the kind of decision that you have to make. You have to bring in a guy that is not great because that's what's left.
Mm-hmm. Well, Clyde's been going to nursing school, and I think he might have a year left. I'm not really sure, but he's been going to nursing school. So I think we've talked about this on the show for 3 years. I think Clyde has other interests. I think he doesn't put all of his motivation into football, and he hasn't for a while.
Well, I don't need you to be all of that if you're going to be my backup running back.
Well, I do. If you're out on the field and you're playing, I want you to play to your full potential. I don't want you to go out there and half-ass it because you got other things in your mind. I don't want him to. I mean, whether you're a backup or not, you have to go out there and play the game. And if he doesn't have his mind in the game, it's not worth having him. That's just my opinion. And he's been like that for a couple, 3 years. Not just injuries, but he just seems like he has other things on his mind. And I don't. And that's just me. But and I've heard that from other people too that are close to the team. So I don't know, man. It's just something that I see in him, and they may bring him back.
Signed like a 1 year or something very, very small if he comes back to the Chiefs.
There was a reason why they didn't pick up his 5th-year option. It just is what it is. So,
yeah, because you don't draft a running back in the first round.
Well, regardless, if they had that much faith in him, they would have picked it up, and they didn't. So, kind of is what it is. They may bring him back. He may be one of the options that Andy sees and says, okay, well, he knows the system, and that's okay because he's not going to see the field a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
But they're going to have a conversation with him about playing when he's on the field. I don't think he's mentally all there in the game anyway. Philip said I'd rather draft who's got Blake Corum, from Michigan.
I'm not bringing back Jerick McKinnon. Jerick McKinnon's time in the NFL is over. Okay,
I don't know if it is or isn't.
He's been plagued with injury. He is what? He's going to turn 33 years old before the start of the season.
Yeah,
32, 33. He's torn his knee out twice. He suffered injury all of this season. I just think that what Kansas City was able to do in the 2022 season, Kansas City squeezed out all the football that was left out of him, and he can ride off into the sunset knowing that he was a big part of one of the Super Bowl wins during this era, and he will always be somebody that will be talked about as a guy that was able to effectively pass block and be great in the passing game. So let's just move on from McKinnon. No hard feelings. I don't want to bring back a guy that has significant injury history and is over the age of 30, so his athleticism is going to start to go down.
Yeah. I agree I agree. He's got a lot of football IQ, a very high football IQ, and I like that about him. I don't know, he was a healthy scratch towards the end of the season last year, but kind of is what it is. Mm-hmm. Anyway, moving on. What's next? Oh, by the way, did you guys know that the Browns have 5 quarterbacks now? Maybe 6. I'm not real sure, but it might be 6. They have signed every quarterback that was in free agency. I don't think there's anybody left. And I don't know what they're trying to do. I think they're trying to figure out whether they're going to keep Watson as a starter. When you bring in Jameis Winston and he's out there taking snaps in an overcoat, Mr. 30 for 30 himself, I don't know, man. It's a weird situation. I don't know what they're trying to do, but that is a very strange situation there.
Jameis Winston's a character.
He really is a character, man. That guy he's something else.
Was he playing? Did he play for the Saints or the Buccaneers when he had that video of him eating his fingers because he
that was the Buccaneers.
That was the Buccaneers.
Yeah. Every time I think of, there are like 2 things I think of when I think of Jameis Winston. It's the 30 for 30, the first 30 touchdown, 30 interception season, and then that video of him he's getting closer to the camera. It had to have been like a primetime game. We're like a Thursday night game, and he's getting closer to the camera, and he's eating his fingers. And I think it's he must have had 4 touchdowns that game or something, and he's counting them off. Those are the 2 things I think of when I think of Jameis Winston.
Yeah, I mean it was a good game for him because he didn't have an interception, and he did throw I think for 3 or 4 touchdowns, which I think he had a really good game. That one of the 3 or 4 or 5 good games he had in his career so far. But yeah, he's definitely a character. I mean, I don't know what the Browns got planned, but they're going all in this year. Mm-hmm. Pretty crazy. Anyway, what's next?
Let's just talk about, did this team get better? How did they get better before, just looking at what they lost and what they gained in free agency?
Right now, I think they got a little bit better on offense as far as the wide receiver is concerned.
Did you
I
want to throw up
don't.
the graphic again of the
Yeah,
gains and losses so we can talk
I
about this?
don't. I don't think they did get any better on defense yet. I mean, of course they signed Chris Jones, but I don't think they've done anything as far as getting better on defense. I think it might
Well,
have
I
hurt
have
them
a
a bit.
suggestion of a player that they could get, but it runs down to money. And to kind of help answer your safety question, JP, that's Justin Simmons.
Yeah, yeah,
A
Can't
lot's going
believe
to
he's
have to
still
be
available.
done. Huh?
I said I can't believe he's still available.
yeah. It's
Yeah,
pretty
and that's
amazing
the
to me.
thing. I would love him to be here, but it's going to come down to money. But if they can, I mean, money has been freed up, but if they can lock him down to a couple, maybe 3-year deal, something small, it's only going to help benefit our team even better than what it is. But if we can get him to come to Kansas City, I'm telling you right now, that defense is going to be in another stratosphere with the guys
Yeah,
we have. But
yeah. He's
Justin
pretty damn
Simmons to the
good.
Chiefs, maybe people don't think that he's worth that money, and like the Chiefs come in like, hey, we'll give you this as your off, we'll offer you this. Hey, you could be part of a winning Super Bowl team. You're part of a great defense that's returned most of his starters back. And if he comes on this team, that's gonna be great because let's say Snead doesn't leave, we're having a lockdown defense.
Oh,
I'm talking about
absolutely.
ultimate team for Madden. So if they can get a guy like him, I would be happy to see. But I don't think anything's gonna happen with him. Maybe till closer to the draft. But again, I'm surprised too that no one's really picking up as well.
Yeah, that's pretty insane to me that he's still on the
That is
free
a
agent
shock.
market.
And
Yeah, that's crazy.
if you just look at his contract projections on Spot Track, he's projected to get a 2-year deal worth $22.2 million. Now, that is a projection that would have been done during the height of free agency.
Correct.
He's not
That's not.
signing
He's not getting that now. No.
Justin Simmons needs to go, and unfortunately for him, he's going to have to go, and he's going to have to sign like a 1-year deal somewhere, and it'll probably be an incentive-laden deal because you're in a point now where all the teams have spent their big money. There's not a lot of dollars left in cap space for any team.
Yeah.
Teams have gone out and signed the players that they want. And it just sucks for a guy like him because the Broncos didn't cut him because he wasn't playing well. They cut him because they made other piss-poor decisions when it comes to contracts, a.k.a. Russell Wilson. And so they had to cut good players, and he was just one of the fall guys for it.
I wonder if John Dorsey was helping them with their contracts.
No shit.
John Dorsey, the man, the myth, the legend.
Oh my
Got
God.
all the gum in his mouth.
Anyway,
Mr. Horseface was. Look, adding Justin Simmons, would be awesome. You want to talk about a guy that could help with that 3 safety rotation? Yeah.
yeah, he'd
In
be a
my
beast.
opinion, the defense, I'm with you, JP. The defense to me didn't get any better, and it got worse just because you lost Willie Gay. But I would even argue that because your defensive line is just so meh, especially on your interior, when you pull Chris Jones, aside, right? Because he's the best defensive tackle in the NFL. If you peel back the onion a little bit and start looking at the other guys there, this interior line is not good.
No.
We already talked about Omena, who's not going to be there, so you can't count on him. So after that, you've got some fine rotational pieces, but nothing else that makes you go, man, look at what this guy might be able to do, right?
Yeah.
We know the floor ceiling of all the other guys on the roster. There isn't anybody else where I'm like, man, he could really be a benefit to this team. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, Pennell and Noddy, like, you need guys like that on an NFL roster because they do give you quality snaps. But when it comes to like real game changers or guys that have the ability to make big plays, I'm just not seeing that. And so I think because you haven't made improvements there, I would say the defense has gotten worse. And I'm not excited for what the defensive line has right now. Obviously,
that's the thing. It can change, so we're not
right. Yeah, there's plenty of time. You've got the draft, and we've talked about all sorts of interior guys that Kansas City can go after. So this is not an indictment on what the team is going to be when, you kick off for week 1. But I'm just saying that that's a conversation that we need to have, that the defensive line still needs some good work on it for it to continue to be one of the best defenses in the NFL.
And then we have holes in other places on the defense that we've made this year and we haven't filled. And I
think that's something they feel as if they're going to be able to get someone that they know who's not going to make the roster on other teams or maybe make a trade. But ultimately, I think we're going to be fine. I mean, I think their mind, if he's not been traded at this point, he's still going to be here. So that's going to help a hole here. Maybe they can swap something with someone else later. But ultimately, I think that with the holes, they'll still figure out a way to win, I think. As long as we have Chris Jones and the guys on the defense, if you can bring a guy like Justin Simmons, that's going to help. Draft well and get guys that can be immediate starters. I think the Chiefs are going to be a good spot. So I'm not really worried.
I'm not either. And one thing you're right, Quentin, draft well. The one thing Veach has done over the last 3 years is draft very well.
Yes.
I mean, we know that. I don't think there's a GM that's drafted as well as him that knows how to put people in this system that really work. And I think that's a huge thing. We're very lucky to have that in our back pocket.
That's true.
He's one of the best. So if not the best. So we're lucky there.
Obviously, on the offensive side of the ball, Kansas City has gotten significantly better. And I use significant because you got rid of NVS, and who was a drag on your team this year. And then you brought in Hollywood Brown, who, even if MVS was on this team, Hollywood Brown is a better wide receiver than MVS is. So you got an upgrade at that point, right? Your offense is already better there. Your offensive line is basically the same thing, assuming you bring back a Donovan Smith. But if they haven't, I would say that the offensive line has definitely seen a downgrade just because you've lost a lot of depth there.
Yeah.
So other than that, I guess my overall point is for this whole discussion is that the team is very similar up to this point, right? You haven't seen a lot of losses. You haven't seen a lot of gains. However, you lost a lot of depth pieces, and that can be very important heading into the season because we know what injuries are, what injuries can be. I don't need to talk about what happened, during the Bucs Super Bowl, what led up to that with a lack of depth in the trenches, right? So this is something that we need to, Kansas City needs to keep an eye on. You need to go out. You need to continue to add depth to this team. And up to this point, I just think that free agency aside, overall, it's been pretty good. Kansas City didn't go out and make dumb signings like some of the other teams did, right? But Kansas City also needs to go out and continue to add depth in the trenches because it is going to be very important heading up into the year. That's all I'm saying.
This is playing with the screen, jacking with you guys, I guess. I don't know what's going on there. This is going crazy with the screen. That's kind of funny.
I hide all the good and bad takes.
I guess. Damn. Yeah, I agree with you, Quentin. The one thing I will say, Hollywood Brown's had some ankle issues, some foot issues. And you know where he's at right now? He's down in Texas with Bobby and Mahomes. And that is a good thing. He's working. He's trying to get his ankles, the strength there, his core strength better. And I don't think there's anybody better. I mean, we know what he's done with Mahomes. And he's down there right now working out with them.
Yeah, there was a picture on the old Twitter sphere of Patrick Mahomes, Rice, and Brown all down there working out. So
there we go. That means the offense ought to be deadly.
Yep. I mean, that's a great thing. Honestly, Rice had his issue with an ankle this past year. And it's a good thing to have Bobby in your corner because he knows what the hell he's doing. And he's I'm just glad he took it on and he said, hey, come on down. We'll get you straightened out. And that's what they're doing down there. And I love it.
And you got Pat Kent coming up in about a month. So
yep.
A lot of good things are going to happen.
And I think by then, if they're going to get another free agent wide receiver, I think you'll have him in by the time Pat Kent comes.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't plan on doing anything until the draft, then it may not happen at all. But because I know Pat likes to have everybody down there.
Yeah.
And don't be surprised if they don't bring back a McColl or somebody of that nature. I don't see that. I can't see that being like an absolute negative. It's not a negative.
Yeah.
You know what? I think my opinion has changed on something. I think I was making the argument probably 2 weeks ago that Kansas City should go out and sign 2 wide receivers this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
2 veteran wide receivers. I think I've backed off of that. I don't think Kansas City needs to go out and sign another veteran wide receiver.
No.
I think you're going out, you're going to spend your first round pick on a, pick whatever, middle of the road wide receiver is going to be there because, we know the top guys aren't going to go to Kansas City. So whatever the guy you think is going to be there, later in the draft. I think Kansas City's offense will be fine. I think there's no need to go out unless you aren't going to bring back like a McCole Hardman, or you truly don't believe in Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney does get cut off of this team. If you aren't bringing back some of those guys, then you need to supplement the snaps by bringing in another veteran. But if you're going to keep, those two or three of those guys at the end of the, roster, then I think going out and just drafting another wide receiver, Kansas City will be fine. So I will back off of the take that I had 2-3 weeks ago that Kansas City should go out and sign another veteran wide receiver. I think they'll be fine if they sort of just stay the course of what they have right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got guys on this team that do know the system. So, and guys that you can bring back that know the system. So why not bring them back? They helped us win a Super Bowl last year with the exception of Sky Moore. So why not do it again? Sky just needs to – I think he needs to learn the lessons that McCole had to learn. But learn them before you get traded, because Sky kind of got it. I think he got into that same mentality that McCole was in 2020, where it's like, look at me, I got a Super Bowl, I'm the best, I'm great, I'm this rookie phenom, and I'm going to go out to the jewelry stores and I'm going to go fuck around. I'm going to be on Twitter all the time, doing spaces and everything else. I don't think that was the best. It wasn't the healthiest situation he put himself in to be an NFL wide receiver. And then, of course, his injury didn't help him much at all after, later on down the line. But regardless, I think Sky has an opportunity to be a good wide receiver. He just needs to, quote unquote, get his head out of his ass and just really pay attention to what he's doing.
You know what I think is also good about, heading into the season with Sky Moore is that now there's no pressure on you.
Yeah.
So you don't need to worry about, whatever you get from Sky Moore from here on out is just stopping, right?
Yeah.
It's quality work. I do think that last year it was a disappointment. It was an extreme disappointment. It was a bad year for a guy that was supposed to develop and become one of the better wide receivers on your team.
I agree.
Now you've probably bumped him down to the 4th wide receiver role heading into the year, right? Mm-hmm. I'm assuming that you're going to go Rice, Hollywood, whatever rookie that you get, then you're going to go with Sky Moore, right? I'm assuming that's going to be the depth chart. Maybe they, early in the year, Sky Moore's above that rookie because we know what Andy Reid, doesn't like to put a lot of stuff on the rookies early in the year, even, if obviously the rookies can handle it. But
let's not forget, we got Justin Watson on this team too.
Yeah, so
Old Faithful's still there, so it's not like he's gone.
Maybe this is an opportunity for Sky Moore to really work on his craft and not have to be a focus of the offense like we all thought that he was going to be heading into the 2023 season.
Well, going by what Andy said, and I mean I'm not blaming Andy for this, but he was a focal point because you got to figure last year it was going to be Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore. Those were going to be the 2 main guys, and neither one of them really.
Yeah, I think Sky Moore has avoided a lot of the criticism because Kadarius Toney was hyped up by the Chiefs so much, and Kadarius Toney has had so much of the like off the field stuff too with the controversy he got himself into. So this is Sky Moore has sort of slid under the radar with a lot of his criticism.
He's lucky. I mean, he really is. He's lucky that Kadarius Toney did what he did. Yeah. Because the criticism wouldn't have stopped.
Oh, yeah, easily. And that's the one thing. When you kind of think about if all these guys can be on their game coming up this season, we have some weapons. So the offense is going to be just fine.
Absolutely.
They're going to out, but the offense is going to be just fine too, I feel like, as well.
I agree. I mean, I think we have 9 wide receivers on the roster right now, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe one more, maybe 10. And, we don't know who's going to be here and who's not. A lot of those are practice squad guys. We know that. But they're going to have to slim down a little bit if they want to bring in a couple more guys. It just is what it is. So they're going to have to make a decision there. But anyway, what's next, man? Who are we talking about now?
We've got our draft picks.
Let's do it.
So I think, dealer's choice, whatever Thiz wants to throw up, we can go ahead and choose those guys. I think all of us have 2 guys. Is that correct?
Yep.
One offense, one defensive player each. No specific positions that anybody has chosen. I don't think anybody will choose a quarterback though. Is that correct? Can we get confirmation that nobody will be saying that Kansas City should draft a quarterback at this draft?
No, I don't think so. I thought you were going to say that earlier, but
quarterback.
All right,
should Michael Penix Jr. should Kansas City trade up?
Why not?
Clip that, put that on social media.
I mean, right now, if you listen to anybody in the NFL, the only conversation that they're having is Caleb Williams.
Yeah, he's the number 1 overall pick.
I understand, but there's other guys out there, and I think they're making. You know what? Every time somebody, I don't know if you guys notice this, but every time somebody's the focal point of everybody's attention, and then they're the number 1 overall pick. We're the last 3 number 1 overall picks right now.
Mm-hmm.
Just curious. Does anybody know where they're at? Does anybody know?
I don't know what.
Trubinsky's gone. He's a backup
he
somewhere.
Didn't go. I don't think he went 1-1. Trevor Lawrence is still with his original team. He went 1-1. I don't know what. Obviously, Bryce Young last year went to the Panthers, but I wasn't a fan of a Despicable Me minion playing quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, I don't get that either. But I mean, the Panthers are very hyped about him. I don't know why. But no, I mean, if you look at, I think Trubinsky was the number 1 overall pick.
No, he was a second pick.
Was he a second pick?
Trubisky was a second. Baker
Mayfield was number 1
first.
that year.
He was
first. Okay. And then Baker Mayfield took what? How many years to get to a team where he's actually doing something?
First of all, if we want to, this conversation maybe we can have later, but I think the Browns screwed over Baker Mayfield, and Baker Mayfield is a much better quarterback than he got credit for when he was with Cleveland.
Well, that's because you got his same mentality. He fucked himself.
Oh my. Okay, let's do this for another time. We're going to go back to for maybe an hour and a half.
I will defend Baker Mayfield. I'll be.
I know you will. I know you will.
Now that he's with the Buccaneers, it has a long-term deal. Let's get some of those progressive commercials back, okay? Baker Mayfield, you were killing it. All right, let's bring him back. Let's have you standing in the pirate ship making pirate puns while you try and sell me insurance. I
might do that.
Well,
full set.
All right. Oh, lad. Hey, has anybody seen this kid play? Have you paid any attention to him? He reminds me of a little bit of that kid with the guy with the Rams. What's his name? Cooper Kupp. He is he's very quick. 4.39 940. He's 11'5" basically, 186 pounds. He's got a 72-inch wingspan, 30 and a quarter inch hands. He's just 8 5/8 hands, 30 and a quarter inch arms. 36-inch vertical jump. Guy's a beast. Very quick. He's got a very good route tree. Let's take a look at this film.
Uh-oh.
Deep down the field. Juked everybody. Gets down to the 1 yard line. The kid is really good. Very quick. Look at that move. And those moves right there. I mean, he basically juked 4 guys to pick up that extra yardage. I like the way he handles himself on the field. He's got a very high football IQ, knows exactly what to do and when to do it. Let's see this play. That was a hell of a catch. Hell of a catch. Reached up out of nowhere. The ball was screaming in there. And I think most of the guys in the NFL would have probably missed that pass. He made it. I don't know about you guys, but I like him. I think he's probably going to go in the draft probably between 44th and 50 in that range. He may go a little earlier, but I doubt it. I wouldn't mind seeing him in a Chiefs uniform.
Okay. So another fast receiver for the Chiefs?
Well, he's not small, though. I mean, he's actually kind of tall. I mean, at 6 foot tall, that's not bad. I mean, we had Tyreek Hill that's 5'0", and McCole Hardman, what is he, 5? He's about 5'10". So, I think he's just that guy that he's got a really good vertical. I like the way he plays the game.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
I'm not a huge Lad McConkey fan, to be
It doesn't
honest.
surprise me. It doesn't surprise me at all.
I think that he is a legitimate vertical threat. I'm not just so sure about some of that intermediate stuff. I just think there are better options, but I do agree with you that this is a guy that is probably going to slide into the second round. So if Kansas City goes with tackle or defensive interior in the first round, and then you get McConkey in the second round, like I wouldn't hate that. I do think that there is good value there. There are just in the first round, I just think there are better options. But in the second round, yeah, this is a guy that he will fill a role when he gets into the NFL.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. Who's next, Is?
Roman Wilson, a better wide receiver. Look, okay, so this is a guy that he played at Michigan, right?
Basically the same size guy.
He's definitely limited with his size, 6 foot, 192 pounds. But you want to talk about an athlete? He is pure athlete. He clocked a 4.3 740. This is a guy that has great route running. Because of his lack of size, he had to run good routes. He had to learn how to run good routes. And to be able to blow by people, he's shown explosiveness. When he was targeted by a mediocre quarterback with J.J. McCarthy, he had 139.5 rating, quarterback rating when targeted. So his 10-yard split and his 40 time are 80 and 86 percentile, respectively. So he's an explosive wide receiver with pretty good route running skills. This is a lot like my McConkey take, where this is a guy that I don't want you taking in the first round, but there is true value when you're getting into the second and third round because he has a lot of skills heading into the NFL that are effective right away. Being a burner, being a good route runner, finding soft zone spots, that's a guy that I would like Kansas City to get at. It's just that you have to be honest with yourself when you're looking at a guy like that. He's going to be limited physically. There's just not a lot more he can add to his frame. This isn't a guy coming into the NFL that you're going to say, oh, we could put on another, 15, 20 pounds and beef up. It's not really the case. So you just have to accept it for what it is.
Well, looking at his at that film, he's not. I don't think he's as good as Ladd, but that's okay. I mean, Ladd's got more route running ability. He definitely got more juke moves, but that's just me. I mean, basically the same guy, but I don't see how he's better. But it is what it is. They're both day 2 guys. I'm not going to be mad if they're both. Either one of them are picked in the second or third round because they may drop. You don't know. I don't think they're going to get any higher than maybe mid or high second round, but I think they'll drop. If anything, and if we're going to pick somebody,
and there's always a chance with those type of guys. You pick them up a later round, and they just end up dominating, become your flex guy or guy you put in the slot. I mean, a lot can happen and change overnight really quickly with these guys.
Absolutely.
And we've seen Brady made a killing with guys like Ladd or Wilson. So
like we did with Julian Edelman. I mean, he wasn't like the biggest
guy. You're talking about future Hall of Famer Julian Edelman.
Yeah, well, that's because some of the guys in the rings. I don't like him.
Better stats.
Yeah, never did like him, but whatever.
All right, who's next? Who you got this? I assume it's going to be a Caleb pick. Yeah, there we go.
Blake Corum, yes. So running back out of Michigan, 5'8", 214 pounds. This is a guy Phil was talking about earlier. I watched a lot of football this offseason, specifically college, and I got to see kind of Michigan as a whole, trying out with the science thing, all different things. But Blake Corum is a guy who can put in the passing game, put in the running game. He's just going to bull through people. I believe if you have him on the Chiefs, he is going to be your second punch of the 1-2 combo that's going to help Pacheco and the Chiefs get to where they need to be. He's a great downfield runner, so he's basically able to knock people out of the way. He does what he needs to do from that area. And in passing, I believe he could do better than what McKinnon did in the passing game. Give him enough time in the Chiefs' offense, and if he can stay relatively healthy, having him to see what he can do is going to be helpful. So look at this one play here. It cuts in. Is just fast, quick, able to juke, gets what he needs to do very quickly. This guy, over time, is going to show us if he's in an injury-like offense and we can move around different positions, he is going to help take this running game to a whole new level. Because last year we relied on the running game, which was great. But if we can bring him again, that's going to help. And also, short passing game, the small extensions of the running game, having him do plays like this, or put him and Pacheco on the back foot are both going to confuse defenses. A double screen. I mean, Andy Reid can come be so creative with this guy because he's just really all that power. He reminds me of like a Doug Martin that played for the Buccaneers way back in the day, but I think he has potential if he signs with the Chiefs to be better than what Doug Martin was with the Buccaneers. Blake
And
Corum,
the one thing about him too, Caleb, is he can get skinny really quick.
yes, and
He gets skinny really quick. Yeah, I like him, and the fact that he's not extremely tall. He's a smaller frame guy for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
He can hide well behind those offensive line guys. And I like him. I think he's a good pick.
Thank you.
All right, Quentin, let's hear your critique of that guy.
Well, here's the thing. Just generally speaking, I prefer to get my running backs from smaller schools. I don't know if I've given this take on the podcast before.
You have.
Okay, yeah, but I prefer to get guys from smaller schools because running backs get a lot of their work done from the offensive line. So before they even get the ball, a lot of what the play looks like is specifically done because of what the offensive line does. And I'd prefer to get a productive running back from a smaller school because they don't have as good of offensive linemen.
So you like Kareem Hunt?
I prefer guy, or if you're coming from place, I don't want a running back that comes from Alabama. I don't want a running back that comes from these schools that are going to have giant offensive linemen. I don't want a running back from Oklahoma, right? Because I know a lot of their production is coming from their offensive line. So that's right there. That's where I'm already hesitant on a very productive guy from a bigger school. I will say one of the things I do like about him is you had this right. His vision in the passing game. Fantastic. And I want Kansas City to run more of that into their offense. I do like the flats and the screen game. Kansas City is very good at it. You got to have the right running back for it. And I do think that one of the guys, I'll talk about him next week, but that is one of the things that I do think I'd like to see Kansas City use more of, especially if you aren't going to use a ton of the downfield stuff because defenses continue to, play back. Use some more of that screen stuff. So that's my critique. Is more just overall, I don't want a running back from a bigger school.
That's fair. I just think he has an opportunity. If you get him on the Chiefs, he's going to be able to help in ways that we've not had that help before with the running game. And I think just having him can only just going to make things better. I think he could be better than what McKinnon. The ceiling is even greater.
And that's the other thing. You aren't looking for a number one running back too. So that's an important part. You're looking for someone that really could just be used in the pass game and obviously can run with the ball too. So that's a good point to bring up there, Caleb. All right, who you got next, This? Gabriel Murphy, this is my pick. Defensive edge rusher from UCLA. I'm excited about this guy. 6'2", 247 pounds. What is impressive about him is not his size, because he actually is one of the smaller guys, both height and weight. But he is explosive as hell. Here are his 40 times, etc. His 40 time was 91st percentile. His vertical, 99th percentile. Broad jump, 94th percentile. 10-yard split, 91st percentile. All elite, right? This is a guy that is explosive coming off the line, and you see that in his pass rushes, okay? This is a guy that, because he was next to Latu, and because he is a smaller frame guy, he will slide in the draft. Teams will not look at him the same way they're going to look at other top-tier pass rushers, because he is a smaller guy. However, because of his just elite athleticism, he already has great pass rushing ability. Okay, he's one of those guys that can depend purely on athleticism before he even takes the field. He already has some good pass rush moves because of his explosiveness. He can line up sort of that off the ball linebacker spot. He also has a good swim move. Part of his problem, though, is that if he gets caught up with, really good tackles, right, then he does have problems shedding blocks. But with a guy that you can teach him, more refined hand movement and things like that, I think that he can become better. His biggest problem is that he gets caught up in run defending because he is a smaller guy. But I'm really not all that concerned about it because this is an explosive human being. And when you're talking about prospects, there's no perfect prospect. So I think this is a guy Kansas City should be interested in. I'm really interested to see where he goes into the draft. I assume third or fourth round because he is such an elite athlete that some of his, negatives will keep him from sliding that far. But if Kansas City could pick him up with the 94th pick, woo,
Ooh.
would I be excited about that? And I
Yes.
do think that's realistic.
Not bad, not bad. I mean, I like Troy Franklin better, but whatever. That was my pick from last week. He was a lot more explosive off the ball, about the same size.
Well, this is the edge rusher.
So was he. If you remember, I picked an edge rusher that just was an animal. He was quick off the ball. He kind of reminded me of
the
Thomas
Clemson,
a little bit.
Yeah, the Clemson guy.
Clemson guy, yeah.
Yeah,
The Clemson guy. That guy there, man. If we could somehow get him on this roster, I don't know if anybody else would see the field. I like it.
Both.
Oof, man.
Both you guys.
Oh,
Put
my
them on
God.
both edges.
Both is good. Yeah, anytime you see, once you get into the third and fourth round, you start to pick guys not necessarily what they did in college, but let's look at the upside that they have and what role that they can play. When you're picking in the third, fourth round, you're not looking for day one starters, right? You're looking for guys that can be, part of the team, more rotational pieces, and guys that you hope can become better pieces later on. And I think that's exactly what Murphy falls into. He's a guy that you can put on the field for third downs. You can put him onto the field for second and long, right? You can work with some of his elite explosiveness. I mean, when you're talking about he has all four of the traits that talk about explosive plays, being able to get off the ball, all four of those tests, he is in the 90-plus percentile in. Right there tells me that he has great potential in the NFL.
Okay.
All right. Who's next?
All right, so McKinley Jackson, so defensive end, Texas A&M. So here is a guy, I believe, if the Chiefs compare the next side to Chris Jones, he will be a great run stopper. One thing the Chiefs have needed, I believe, in the last couple of years is having run stoppers for cheaper a need over time in order to help plug in these holes. So some examples you can see here. This guy is good as also a pass coverage, but also plugging those holes. And I believe if you have him paired up with Chris Jones and to see what he's able to do, 6'2", 325, and the guy moves a little bit slow, but I've seen some instances where he is able to get a quarterback really quickly. Kind of reminds me when Aaron Donald goes after the quarterback. But this guy's able to split tackles pretty quickly, get to the quarterback like we see right here.
He's really quick.
Pair him with a Chris Jones and allow him to have time to develop. He can do a lot of great things. I believe he's considered to be like a top 50 or top 75 prospect. So I'm thinking more like mid to late second, possibly early third. But I believe there's a lot of upside with this guy. And I believe truly with his ability that we're seeing here, he has an opportunity to really help bolster the defensive line in the future, especially when we're trying to make some runs in the playoffs. I believe personally in the big body, 325, 6'2", even the passing games, the running game, he can just plug in those holes. And that's what the Chiefs need when we're going against these teams a little to run the ball, especially in January.
He was awful quick. I'll tell you that. He was quick through that middle. I mean, he was that. That's hard to find nowadays, especially in the. I mean, if you can get somebody that can transition that over to the NFL. I mean, if you look at this move right here, he breaks through there within a couple of seconds. He's in the backfield.
Yes. He is. He dropped his. He was very eye popping. Like, oh, this guy can move. I'm like, okay, yeah. Well, may look a little slow sometimes, but I think really he can wreck some people's dreams. And that's what the Chiefs need in certain instances.
Look, this comes back to our conversation we had about the defensive line. That's a good depth piece. You want to talk about a way to, fourth round pick to bring in a guy that can be a run stuffer. Kansas City needs that, right? Kansas City's kind of missing that guy, the main run stuffer and defensive interior guy. They don't really have that. We know Chris Jones can play well in the run game, but we know what he does best. We know that he's a pass rusher at heart, and that sometimes he does struggle to get after the running back. So, yeah, that is a guy that, once again, it's a role piece. You're getting him in here to be, hey, you're sort of that first, second down guy. We need you to go out there and sort of eat up snaps, eat up blockers, let the linebackers clean up. That's exactly what Kansas City is looking for.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Okay, Thiz. All right, man, Kool-Aid. Has anybody watched any of this dude's film? Now, understand something. I love versatile secondary guys. Somebody that can play Whether it's slot, you want to play safety, strong safety, corner, it doesn't matter. He's listed as a corner, 6'1", 294. This guy, his rookie year, his rookie year, he was Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, he's been everything. All-American in 2023. He's 21 years old. Can play any position in the secondary. One of the better players I've seen come out of this draft. I don't know if you guys saw that. That was insane. His height is perfect for the NFL. His weight is really good for the NFL. Now, he had a fracture in his foot, so he didn't go to the combine, but I think he worked out in the pro day, but he wasn't in the combine. But he's very versatile, gets after everybody. Most wide receivers have a really hard time with this guy, whether it's, like I said, he plays the slot, he plays the outside, he'll play safety. It doesn't really matter. He's a pick machine. Look at that play right there. That was pretty amazing. Just ripped it right out of his hands. I would love to see. I don't know where this guy is going to fall in the draft. It's kind of hard to say, but I would put him somewhere in the probably high second to third, or maybe early third.
Okay.
He'd be an amazing pickup. I mean, he's a two-time first-team All-SEC, 22 and 23, and he's only 21 years old. Those are the kind of guys we need on this team. We need somebody that can be a depth piece, come in and do what you have to do, develop with the team. And when Snead, if he comes back this year, that's great. If he doesn't, we need a guy like him. Mike Edwards is gone. We need to fill those shoes.
Okay.
And I think he'd be a great piece to put in there.
I like that. I think he could help. Now it's going to be interesting to see if he falls. And if he does, that'd be awesome. But, hey, that's just another great defensive piece. And I will say this: a lot of great Alabama players, sometimes they fall in the drafts for a number of different reasons. But if he falls to choose, hey, I have no problem with that because I would love to have him on this defense.
I think the only thing that would get him down or make him fall any further is the fact that he had a fracture in his foot and they didn't get to see him in the combine. And I think that is going to hurt him a little bit. And that's why I feel like maybe the Chiefs can grab him if they have to, if it's somebody they're looking for.
I think he's like the second corner taken off the board.
Wow.
I think that the Eagles are a good team for him to go to because for some fucking reason the Eagles haven't added anything to their backfield, even though it sucks.
What makes you think they're going to start now? They still haven't done it.
So what are they? They sitting at pick like 24, something like that, early 20s.
Yeah.
I think that the Eagles are a spot where he may end up going. I think that he's an exceptional corner and that he could go very early in the draft. I agree with really everything that you said up to that point. The bigger the corner you can get, with how big these wide receivers are, how vertical that these guys can get, every advantage that you could possibly get yourself with a corner in terms of height, you need to be able to get because the wide receivers continue to get better and better, and you can't put your hands on them as much as you used to be able to. So any extra frame that you can give yourself to be able to get in front of the ball and the receiver, that's a huge advantage to you. So yeah, I think that he is a good player to go to someone like the Eagles. And if Kansas City somehow ends up with him, then you're going to end up with, once again, the best duo in all football. Plus, my take on this. You should always be drafting edge rushers, corners, and wide receivers. Every single draft, you should end up with those positions because you need a lot of them on your team. The position is very volatile, and they're expensive to get in free agency. So you should be taking swings at those positions in every single draft. So
and honestly,
add them to your roster.
And it's very difficult to find corners that's the second hardest position in football, in my opinion. I've always said this. Quarterback probably is number one. I think number two is being a corner. The way the NFL beats you to death as a corner, and they got a flag in their hand and ready to go. He understands what he's supposed to do. He's not if you look at his penalty rate during college, it's not high at all. I don't know, man. I think he would be a great fit. And I agree with you. The Eagles do need a secondary. They haven't fixed it in 3 years. I don't know if they're going to start now. You think they would have picked somebody up, including Snead, if they were really interested in it.
I don't see the Chiefs trading them unless they give them some considerable pick in return.
That's my point, yeah. You think they would have offered a second right off the bat, but they didn't. So I don't know what their plans are. It's Sirianni, so who knows? You never know what that guy's plans are. But regardless, I agree with you. I mean, he would be phenomenal in this off. I mean, you got with McDuffie and him, and then if you keep Snead another year and he develops behind Snead, oh my, that's dangerous. That's dangerous.
We're in a good deep top 10, top 5 defense right there.
Caleb, 5 years ago when we were doing this show, did you ever expect to say, holy shit, we got a number 2 defense in the NFL?
I did not think. I knew we had top 10 defense. We had some issues, but this is different stratosphere.
We have struggled since Mahomes has been in the league up until this last, really 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we were 13th overall, I think, last, or maybe 11th overall last year, and then to drop to 2. And really, we should have been number 1 because we showed that the Ravens weren't that great. So, I don't know, man. It's pretty amazing to sit here and go, wow, we actually have a defense, and now we're going to have a better offense.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty crazy to think about. Anyway, I don't know what else we got left. We got anything, guys?
That is it. I guess if you're paying attention to March Madness and the KU game should either be on right now or because college basketball takes forever to start games, it'll be on in a couple minutes. So
yep. Well, if you like KU, root for him. If you don't. I don't know what else to say. With that being said, we appreciate everybody for joining. Make sure you go onto YouTube and like and subscribe, and we will talk to you guys again next Tuesday. Peace out, everybody.
See ya.
Guys.